what up, Long Beach? Welcome back to your home for everything local sports. This is another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk, presented by the Press-Telegram and the Gazette newspapers, brought to you by Naples Rib Company, and featuring three men and a baby who are bucked up and ready for some bracketology. I am co-sports editor JJ Fiddler to my right.
I'm only like halfway bucked up right now. This is co-sports editor Mike Gardavasio holding Vincent the Sports Baby, and to our collective right,
Catch up, bro.
Tyler Hendrickson, a.k.a. Trill Nye the Science Guy. Stop. Drop. Shut him down. Open up shop.
We're not going to sing along with you.
I had a really good follow-up if you were down, but it's okay. Make sure, because it's playoff time, now you're going to want to get on Twitter to get the scores from us at PT Gazette Sports. But also, if you're on the road, looking at you, Splash Zone, you can send us score updates from your game to our Twitter, and then we can retweet that and get the news to everybody. And then you can be Twitter famous by interacting with the three men and the baby.
Basketball, soccer, all the winter sports, the brackets are out, we're breaking them down, and we've got some breaking news coming up on this episode of Long Beach Sports Talk. In the history of advantageous disrespect, you'd be hard-pressed to find more advantageous disrespect than what happened to the Poly boys basketball team concerning the Open Division for high school boys basketball this weekend.
yeah, you may have heard, if you've been within earshot of your phone and the Twitter application, that Long Beach Poly boys basketball team left out of the Open Division, subject of some debate, not just among Poly fans and team members, but really among the media at large, because, you know, Cal High Sports, who are usually right on the spot, had Poly as a relatively high seed, actually, you know, a 10 to 12 type seed, and for them to not get in, I think, caught a lot of people off guard. We're prepared to break that down. We actually were at Bracket Day on Sunday, got the planning document that the Open Division Committee used to make that decision, and we also talked to one of the members of that Open Division Committee who made the decision as to where people were seated. So we got a pretty full explanation of it, and you know, interesting stuff. I mean, this is the first year we had this Open Division, so it obviously wasn't going to go entirely smoothly. I'm sure the CIF would have preferred it if some of the glitches were ironed out. I certainly think it sounds like they're not real happy with the decision they made with the girls' open bracket to have there be a 2-week layoff for the top 4 seeds. But overall, this is very interesting, Gage. I can't remember anyone ever talking about the high school basketball playoffs this much before they started. I'll say that.
Well, if that's what they wanted, they got it. I think the first thing you do when you look at a team like Poly that was anticipated to be in this Open Division bracket, they were on the watch list all season long. You look at them being the champion of the best, arguably the best, public school basketball division in the Southern Section, league in the Southern Section. You also look at the teams that they went on the road to beat, the places where they traveled out of state, and you start to question what they needed to do to get in the Open Division, right? Isn't that what the first thing everybody asked was?
Well, yeah, I think that's a fair question because, I mean, keep in mind, this is a team that for 4 straight years has made it to the semifinals or beyond of the Division I AA bracket, the highest bracket.
Right.
So if you're looking at past success, I mean, it's Poly. I mean, right up there with Mater Dei and Etowanda. I mean,
and that's always a deciding factor when they move teams in the divisions in basketball. Always a deciding factor is league success and past success for each program.
And did they not win their league with just 1 loss, coming off a near 60-game winning streak in that league?
So here's the way the criteria is broken down. I actually think it kind of makes sense. They completely acknowledged, I think, that if they're going primarily off past success, they go with that. What they actually tried, even though that was in the criteria, they strongly went against that and wanted to say, we want to be confident we have the 16 best teams.
Isn't that how they created the watch list, though?
Yeah, and you know.
So they're going to create the watch list by past success, and then after that they're going to change it?
No, I see what you're saying. I mean, I think Poly certainly deserved to be on the watch list. I think it was told to me they were the second team left off, so they would have been 18th of the teams if you were to rank them all. But here's essentially what it broke down to. What they really looked at was quality wins. And if you look at who Poly beat, they beat Compton once, barely, and then lost by a bigger margin to Compton the second time they played them. Whereas Compton beat the brakes off Bishop Montgomery, who Poly lost to. Compton with a number of quality wins, including Poly. But, what's interesting was the committee got so deep into the performance that Poly barely beating Jordan actually apparently factored into this.
Really?
Which really surprised me because you go, well, it's still a win, though. So essentially what people felt like was they didn't have the resume to get in terms of who they'd beaten. Part of that, I think, and they lost to every team really that they played this game. They lost to Compton one of the 2 times they played them. They lost to Bishop Montgomery. They lost twice to Westchester, who will be in the state open division. And so, it's an interesting point. Candidly, I don't really know these teams well enough to look at the 15th team, 16th team, and be like, oh, Poly's definitely better or worse than that team. I think, and what the committee acknowledged, the person that I talked to was, yeah, it is a little bit weird that a team goes first in the league and doesn't get in. But the example that they used was Washington when they won the Pac-12 regular season a couple years ago, but got knocked out early in the tournament, and everybody was surprised that they didn't get an NCAA at-large bid. And this committee member said, it's not the job of the NCAA committee, and we didn't feel like it was our job to look at the league, but to look at their season from start to finish and evaluate whether or not we think they're better than these teams.
The league's not part of that?
It's part of it, but it's fair to say, like, we're not going to take that one part of the schedule as better than Compton late in the season, too, beating Bishop Montgomery. Compton almost beating Loyola when Loyola was at full strength, but for 2 missed free throws with 1 second on the clock.
Sure.
And certainly if you look at the season in sum, I don't think there's any question Compton has a better resume.
Yeah, Compton made it, by the way.
Right, and I don't think, and frankly, I was saying, I think that it's not necessarily the right debate, because Compton clearly has, start of the season to end of the season, you would have to say a better resume than Poly.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So to me, there's no question that Compton was going to get in. It's more that, like, Poly didn't get in and the 16th and 15th seeds did get in, is the way that I would look at it.
But it is a departure in criteria. And I think that's worth noting, and I think that based on the criteria, you can understand this decision, but it was a surprise based on how the CIF has kind of done things in the past.
Well, definitely.
So acknowledge that it's different.
And this is very different from things they've done in the past, and I think intentionally so. And it's one of those things where it's good that we're having this conversation now, because I think Friday, once these games get underway, I think people are going to stop talking about, whether it was a success or not a success the way the bracket was put together pretty quick, because the level of basketball that's going to be played in this bracket is going to be really, really fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to the point where we're not talking about it anymore, but I'm getting updates from JJ at Compton versus Redondo Union. We're finding out how Bosco is doing against a Loyola team that is missing Parker Jackson Cartwright. I mean, these games are really great, and when you look at what sets up in the second round, I mean, hoo boy.
Oh my.
It really is, I would say the biggest flaw for me of the bracket is that they're not doing multiple games in one spot. Because if you're a high school basketball fan, it's a bummer to have to choose between some of these games we're going to get.
Let me just say this before we move on and talk a little bit about who else is playing. You look at this open division bracket, and you're talking about the fact that they didn't have as many quality wins, Poly. That they needed more quality wins in order to get in, and they weren't even that close. They weren't even the first team out.
Right.
Quality wins means a quality opponent, and there are only so many things you can control when it comes to scheduling in a high school sport.
And they were
you have to play your league opponents twice. You just have to. And Poly, and it's a great league, as we've said. And Poly doesn't dodge tournaments. They go to the tournaments.
Right.
But those tournaments cost money.
Right.
Those tournaments are logistic nightmares. Those tournaments are things that certain programs to do. Again, we said it when they announced the open division. I think we mentioned it in the middle of the season, and I'll say it one more time. If you want to make a private school division, just do it. Just do it and move on from there and let everybody else play each other. Because if these teams are going to have to travel to 3 out-of-state tournaments or whatever it is in order to play the teams that are considered to be good enough to be a quote-unquote quality win, then just let the private schools have their fun and let everybody else have their fun too. And we won't need to be talking about this as much as we are.
That's a great point, because Poly had 3 big chances to get local big wins, 2 against Westchester, 1 against Bishop Montgomery. 2 of those games were 1-possession games. And you're right, JJ, I mean, a team like Bosco who ends up with 9 losses, but they had a lot of chances at premier wins because they flew everywhere across the country.
You'd almost count a close loss at City of Palms over a close win over a California team. You know what I mean?
In some ways,
definitely. Yeah.
In some ways. But you're right, let's move on. And one of those other teams in the Open, we mentioned Compton.
Yep.
And
playing Redondo Union. I love that game, that matchup. That is
well, JJ, on Monday in our meeting when we're sitting around talking about what games to do, you were polite enough to wait until I said, let's talk about basketball. But as soon as I go, let's talk about basketball, JJ goes, I did the Compton game.
Yeah, no doubt. We actually usually make it down to Redondo Union every year to cover their preseason tournament. And Compton goes every year. So we've seen Compton playing in the Redondo gym quite a few times. And ultimately we end up seeing Redondo Union as well. That program really turned around very quickly in the last few seasons. I remember a few years ago we were watching them struggle to beat Jordan, and then all of a sudden now they're in the open division.
Coaching matters.
Coaching matters, and a clash of styles there. Come back on the day of the game for a bigger preview of that one.
Yeah, so a good opportunity for the Babes. You don't want to look too far ahead, but
Well, especially because they're not. They are the underdogs in that game.
They're on the road.
Which also, let's also say, as one of 8 number 1 seeds in their respective divisions, Compton is the 13 seed in the open division. So there are 5. Yeah, so there are 5 teams who aren't number 1 in their division who are ranked above Compton in the open division.
Well, and that's why I'm saying come Friday night, I don't think anyone's going to be talking about whether the bracket was put together well or not.
Talk about throw the records away.
Yes.
11 seed for Compton. 11 seed Compton.
Sorry, excuse me.
And if they win, they would play the winner of Loyola and St. John Bosco. That's a game that I will be at to see what's up with these Bosco Braves, because haven't been their best, but we know how supremely talented they are and how explosive they can be. Great draw for the Braves, because they do have to visit Loyola, but as we mentioned, Loyola's point guard going to Arizona, Parker Jackson Cartwright, no longer on the team, so you're playing sort of a depleted 3 seed. You know, that 3 seed is not as strong as people expected it to be.
If you had to play one of the top 3 teams, they basically won the lottery.
Exactly.
That's a lot better than going to Mater Dei or to Etiwanda.
Yeah, I'll say. So if they're able to take down the Cubs, and if Compton's able to pull that road upset, I mean, Bosco at Compton in the second round, oh my.
Turn up.
Can I pre-dibs that one? Please.
And let me just add this, by the way, a big tip of the cap to Mayfair. JJ mentioned this is sort of, I think, being thought of as a powerhouse private school kind of a bracket, but Mayfair, a public school in Lakewood, an 8 seed. They actually get a home game, and that's a really big accomplishment for them. I think that sort of got lost in the local media coverage because of the Poly news and the storyline of Bosco going to play a PJC-less Loyola. But really, I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for the Monsoon. It says a lot about how much that program has grown. And very, very impressive for them to go from being a Division II champion a couple years ago to having a home game in the first round with the big boys here. Too bad if they win. It looks like they'd probably just have to go to Mater Dei in the second round. But that is what this division is about, and a tip of the cap to them for getting there.
Yeah, we move over to Division I AA, and as one of our favorite coaches in the city says, don't cry for, and then just fill in the team here. I mean, don't cry for Poly. Like I said, advantageous disrespect. They fall into the overall 1 seed of the Division I AA bracket. They take on Knight, the 4th place team out of the Golden League.
Which last year and every year prior would have been the best spot you could possibly be in, the 1 seed in I AA.
Right, that would be Mater Dei if we didn't have this open division right now. On that same side of the bracket, a cool local matchup. Los Alamitos, champions of the Sunset League, are going to host the Jordan Panthers out of the Moore League, so that's kind of fun. You know, we get that in football sometimes during the preseason, but we'd never get it in the playoffs. But in basketball, we do, which is kind of cool.
And Jordan at 11 and 16 has been able to be close with some good teams so far this year. Los Al ranked 5th in 1AA, so that'll be a good test for Jordan to see if they can hang with the Griffins in obviously an unfriendly environment.
Another Moore League team that's got to hit the road. Milliken is going to visit West Ranch. West Ranch,
they've got to hit the road considerably more than Jordan, though.
Oh yeah, West Ranch, the 2nd place team out of the Foothill. Thing is, Milliken is the 10-seeded team here in this bracket. So, if Milliken can win at West Ranch, they then come home and would host the winner of Rancho Verde San Clemente. You can assume that the 7-seed Rancho Verde would win that game. So we talked about how amazing the playoff run for Milliken was last year. They won at home against Gar and at home against San Clemente. To go on the road and get a win in the first round and then get that big home game against a very, very good Rancho Verde team, I think is the logical next step for a program on the rise over there at Milliken. So I'm excited to see what they can do.
It's a good setup for them to get into the quarters. You're right, JJ, but they have to take care of business on the road, and that's a long way away. I know they're expecting to have fans.
And there's so much about their gym. You know, I mean, they're a very different. They are a very different team on the road. It is worth noting.
It is their power source, no doubt. Also in that bracket, Downey ranked number 9. They're hosting Upland. So Upland making the unfortunate journey away from Upland to come here and play Downey.
It's tough. Obviously, you got to talk about the girls' open division with Poly and Linwood both in there from the local area. Poly, sort of the subject of that interesting situation where they've got that 2-week layoff, literally a 2-week layoff from their last Moore League game. Poly head coach Carl Buggs not real thrilled with that. As soon as he realized it was going to be a 12-team bracket for the Open, he knew that was inevitable. But that's a long layoff, and especially you consider a team comes out of the Moore League. it's basically 3.5 weeks since their last competitive basketball game will be their first playoff game. That is pretty tough.
Right, yeah. Their last real competitive game, real competitive game was against Windward. Then they played Windward, which
is in the Open, so...
Yes, but, I mean, they were pretty comfortable after going up 15-2 after the first quarter. Weren't real tested, but still had to play well to take care of the Knights. The Knights there could have a rematch with Poly. They visit Chaminade in the first round. If they were to win, they would visit the Jackrabbits and have to try to pull something to reverse that decision.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be interesting. The other interesting wrinkle on the girls' basketball brackets is Millikin, in a kind of a similar situation, the Millikin girls to the Poly boys. They are the third seeded team in Division 1 AA, and again, we had 7 teams taken out of 1 AA to go into the Open, so they would have been 10th if this were last year, but now they're third seeded, could have a trip to the semifinals, could even get all the way to the ship. So obviously some intriguing storylines to follow along there, and we will have articles and videos from all those games, so plenty to talk about there.
Boy, I was ready to write a scathing article. I was all prepared. How many times have we seen local leagues disrespected in CIF brackets because the leagues were good?
Yeah.
You know, you see teams run roughshod through these leagues, have like one loss or whatever. They get that top seed, they get the nice draw, they end up in the quarterfinals just because they kind of fell into it, you know. Mm-hmm. And how many times have we seen Moore League, for example, a Moore League where everybody's got 2 losses because there is parity and these teams are very close, very good, but very close, and then you find out that the second seeded Moore League team has to play one of the top 4 seeds in the second round. We've seen it so often. I thought we were going to get it again in soccer. Moore League boys and Moore League girls, a heck of a season. We had all 4 teams in the boys' side who made the playoffs spend at least a day in first place. We had a third place girls team with 1 loss in the Millikin Rams.
Yeah,
it was one of those years. Unfortunately, the boys got the short end of the stick in Division 1. Luckily, the girls did not in Division 2. Poly, Wilson, and Millikin won't see a top 4 seeded team until the quarterfinals in Division 2, which is a very good draw for them. Jordan, on the other hand, not so lucky in the boys. Cabrillo, on the other hand, not so lucky in the boys.
Right.
Lakewood, on the other hand, not so lucky on the boys. So it's tough for the boys. They actually do. Cabrillo has to play the top seed in the second round. Jordan has to play the top seed in the second round. So it's tough for the boys on that side. It's just nice to see them get 1.
Yeah, it's hard to put together a boys soccer league that was more competitive than the Moore League was this year. As you mentioned, all those teams fighting and battling it out, and Lakewood now has to win a wild card game to get into the full bracket, and it's going to be tough for them. But these teams are so resilient, you know, and you certainly don't want to count them out, and soccer's the kind of game where you can go get that result on the road. But great point, JJ, about the girls' teams. Wilson and Poly both get home games to start, which is nice.
Home games against third place finishers. So the second place team from the Moore League plays a third place team.
Right. Yeah.
That's the sign of getting a good draw right there.
Right there. Yeah. Exactly. Wilson hosts La Habra, Poly hosts Corona Centennial, and then Millikin goes on the road to Chaparral. But as you mentioned, they won't have to play that top seed Sunny Hills until the quarterfinals. And you just know that Sunny Hills is going to make the quarterfinals. And now it's up to Millikin to try to get there. Because Sunny Hills is like always in everything.
That would be the third time in 4 years that Millikin would play Sunny Hills in the playoffs.
Let's go!
It's ridiculous. They just keep finding each other.
Millikin plays Sunny Hills and Poly plays a team from Palmdale every freaking year. Death taxes and those 2 things.
I'm still waiting for that 1 wild card team in the soccer bracket. I think you just mentioned it. I know we always talk about it. Soccer is the one sport where you really throw the records out the window when the playoffs come around, and anything can happen on any given day. You know, you've got 1 star in a basketball game, you can kind of tell what's going to happen. You've got 1, good unit on a football team, you can kind of tell what's going to happen. In soccer, man, it's wild out there, and I'm still waiting for that 1 wild card, maybe like a low seed, somebody to knock off a number 1 seed and then take their road in the playoff bracket. It's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be this year, but it's going to happen pretty soon, and I'm excited for the playoffs.
It's going to be wild in these streets. Also want to quickly mention Division 4, loaded up with local teams, La Mirada, Warren, Downey, Mayfair.
That's the girls' side?
Yes, on the girls' side. La Mirada put up as the top seed, Downey as one of those top 4 seeds, so advantageous positions. They will host wild cards in the first round. Watch out for them. And then in Division 7, St. Anthony, winners of the Santa Cruz League, they also host a wild card at setting up as one of the top 4 seeds in that bracket as well, D7 for girls soccer. So a lot of pitches with a lot of local teams that will be succeeding. At least that's what we expect here in the next few weeks.
We got like 40 soccer teams out there trying to win a plaque. Follow along right here. Non-stop Olympic watching. I am the same way. What's your favorite sport right now?
Curling is obviously my steez. So.
I'm not really into it.
He's not really a winner
This year,
guy.
I'm not really a winner guy, and then this year I'm just not really.
Well, there's not really anyone out there. There's not really anyone out there that you're like. I mean,
As Lolo Jones literally just came on the television, there's nobody out
but
there.
that's a good example. It's like a somewhat controversial summer athlete is like one of the bigger storylines of the Winter Games.
I'm intrigued by the hockey, but my problem is I'm not really to grips with the whole time difference, like when it's live, when it's actually on, and I haven't been able to just
That
sit
matters
down and
for
be
you?
committed to
You
it.
just gotta
Watching it live
it's
matters?
Just, if it's
A
on the
little
if
bit.
it's on the computer, it's live. If it's on the TV, it's tape delayed. Do you know what I mean? Like that's basically the way to look at it.
That's not true. I watched the Russia-USA game. That was live. The hockey game.
That
It
might-
was also 4 o'clock in the morning.
I will say this. I watched that too. That was the only time I noticed. I didn't know that there was a live logo that went with the NBC Olympics logo until I saw that game.
This just into the news desk.
Sometimes I feel like if I let you go, you just go and go and go and go.
It just fades out, you know?
We were the first to report back in December that Poly head coach Raul Lara was leaving the football program over there. Now, some interesting news. You've probably already seen this on the website, but Lara taking over the program at Warren, a Bears team that was 0-10 last year. Raise your hand if you saw this one coming. Anyone with their hand raised right now is a liar.
Right back like I left something.
I think what you're seeing here is a guy who wants to prove his coaching acumen. You know, would be my thought about this. He's always sort of considered to have the superior, talented teams at Poly. You take over an 0-10 football team and you can turn them into a winner. I think it's safe to say people understand that you can coach. Very, very interested to see how this experiment goes.
Well, we always talked about how tough it was to be that guy. To be the head coach of the Poly football program, it's a thing. And despite winning 5 championships, Raul Lara got his share of guff over his years as the Jackrabbits leader. And Mike, how many times have we tried to explain to someone how good he is?
Or
You know what I mean?
how your NFL storylines don't apply to this guy. He really, you know,
Exactly.
because the first thing a lot of people said to me is, well, doesn't this prove that he got fired at Poly? Because who leaves Poly for Warren? I go, nope. He definitely wasn't fired. He definitely just is this guy who doesn't care how it looks for him, doesn't care what people think. He just wants to coach, and I think this is the most comfortable spot for him.
Well, we said that when he was at Poly, and I feel like this move just proved what we were trying to tell people. It's like, this guy isn't about those other things that a lot of people are about right now in high school football.
Right.
He's about being a football coach,
Right.
helping young men grow. Like, that's what it means when you leave Poly and you go to Warren. You
Right.
couldn't have done anything more to prove us right in the fact that, hey, this dude's just a football coach.
Well, and obviously the Poly job is pretty exhausting. I mean, the good thing for Antonio Pierce, he doesn't really have any hair to lose during the job. I will say that. But you know,
Does Raul Lara age in reverse when he
Does
goes
he-
to
does he
Warren?
start
Sorry.
getting-
Is it the Fountain of Youth? It might be the Fountain of Youth. But yeah, I mean, so now he just gets all the pressure off of him. He's going to a team that's lost 22 straight games.
It is in a way it's a win-win.
Yeah,
Right?
and he
Because
just gets
if
to
he can't
coach.
turn it around, you go, well, you know, it's Warren. What are you going to do? And if he can turn it around, well, obviously it was him because they haven't won a game in 22 tries.
Yeah, so he just gets to focus on the football. He doesn't have to worry about, you know, the fans and competing at the highest division and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's just a move that people weren't necessarily expecting, but I get it, and we'll see. It's great to have him still on our coverage map and, you know, have the chance to see him every now and again, you know, because he really is a great coach, and he does more than just coach football. And I think people miss a lot of that when they're just focusing on what happens on the field on Fridays.
He's some interesting inside baseball stuff. He is taking some people, some names you might recognize. Jack Murray for one. Brent Perez, the offensive line coach at Poly that we praised during that 2012 championship season.
Oh, yeah.
He worked wonders over there. He's going with him and will be on campus as a teacher. And Greg Washington, long-time strength and conditioning guy at Poly. In fact, a lot of those Poly NFL guys, when they come back to Long Beach, still working out with Greg. So that's, I mean, honestly, as great as Raul Lara is, Greg Washington might be a bigger come-up for the Warren football program than anything else. I mean, that is a professional-level trainer and strength and conditioning guy to have working with your kids, so that's pretty cool for them.
The Bears are going to be a lot stronger with Greg over there. So some big losses. We knew these changes were coming for the Poly football program. They continue. A new chapter for Raul Lara and an exciting one. We'll see how it goes, but you got to expect he's going to be successful. That's just what he does. Ain't nobody got
Skeleton.
Time. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Skeleton, dude,
Nah.
come on, bro. I mean, we're talking centimeters between your chin and a block of ice.
Not for me.
It's stupid.
How many times during the Winter Olympics do I ask, how do you get involved in something like that?
Just take the medal.
Basically, anytime anyone's on a slope.
How do you start something like that?
Anytime anyone's on a slope, really, you've got to ask yourself that question. I'm personally, the thing I love about the Winter Olympics, it's like aliens, really. They're doing stuff that, like, to compete in the sport, they're doing things that I don't know how to do.
That's it. That's all. There ain't no more. Another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk in the books. We have broken down the brackets. It's time to roll the ball out there and play these things. Like we said, they switch them off on soccer, so boys and girls playing on different days. Some of the basketball brackets not as easy to follow, so you can follow along with those brackets at GazetteSports.com, and you can also follow along with the daily schedule at the Press Telegram. All of that coverage, obviously, on both websites and in both papers.
Well, on a lot of games, JJ mentioned right after recording, we're about to go get out and see some water polo, so we'll have coverage of that and a video on the website.
And, of course, the Saturday individuals for wrestling at Santiago Canyon College. A lot of local wrestlers getting out and competing in that also.
It's the playoffs, baby. Nothing better for everybody who is involved with the Press Telegram and the Gazette newspapers, as well as everybody who's involved with this show. For Mike, for Tyler, for Vinny, for JJ, for everybody else in the LBC who just loves sports and loves the playoffs. It will be a pleasure to see y'all in the stands this weekend.
You understand that.
Take care, y'all.
That's just ego.
Hey,